Hey, it's Karlie,
Hey, it's Shamina.
and we are.
Emotionful. I got pretty deep there. I need to clear my throat. I was like, ooh, my throat's a little clogged. I can go deeper. Oh, that's
Shamina can
gross.
go deeper.
That's gross. That's no. No, 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 no. Why do you always have to make a sexual innuendo joke like right in the beginning? It throws
It's just who I am. It is who I am.
All right.
All right. So little notifications.
Oh yes,
We
yes,
are
yes.
we are gonna be taking next week off. A little mid-season breaky.
Great.
But we'll be back.
We'll be
And
back on Tuesday, the 24th. So we will be not releasing anything the week of the 17th. I know you guys will totally miss hearing our voices.
although me and Shamina have had to re-listen to our podcast, and me and her both are like, oof, wait. We have unique voices, I guess, but y'all real MVPs.
Yes.
And then, do you
Go.
have more?
No.
Okay. And then, usual shout outs. I'm having a huge brain fart.
Joanne Stewart, Kevin Gallagher, Therese Gallagher, thank you for our patrons and your continued support. Socials, follow us on Emotionful Pod on the gram, like us on there's nothing cool to call Facebook, on the book. Sounds weird.
FB, baby.
Emotionful Podcast, subscribe to us below on YouTube, Emotionful Podcast. That's what it's called. Or if you're listening to us audio
Audio only.
yeah. That works. Subscribe to our channel on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or however it is that you listen to us. That would be fantabulous.
And so now we're gonna kind of talk about me again. A 1-year reflection.
Karlie's 1-year reflection, part two, and the
insignificance.
Well, okay, so that's gonna be like first half of the episode. Open the throat chakra, Shamina. Come on now. And the second half is going to be talking about the tales that we are told throughout our lives about life. Yes, we're doing both.
Why?
I don't think we're gonna have enough content just for one. We'll segue into it.
Oh, I have enough. No, I'm kidding. So let's begin. Are we thirsty?
Ready to get emotionally full? Thirsty.
Are we thirsty for some emotions?
Yeah. Are you?
I don't know. Look at these cheekbones. Okay. So as I speak to you, I am turning 28, y'all. Well,
yes.
when you
hear this will be released on Karlie's 28th birthday.
what is it, 8? No.
Yeah, 6, 7, 8.
6, 7, 8. Okay. Yep. Anyways, so I think I've said this before, but the date that I had worked out with my ex to move out was prior to my birthday because I wanted to make sure that I had a fresh, clean start, blah, blah, blah.
But you were free.
Free falling. Anyways, so that was May 1st. So this past weekend was May 1st. And I was like anticipating like an emotionally rough day and it just being like tough on me. And then it wasn't. It was a day, you know, and I think because of the way that I felt on that specific day was very like freeing for me. I think it kind of like, although I didn't feel a lot of emotions, it almost like released a lot of emotions for me. I don't know if that makes sense as I like say it out loud. But yeah, I mean, I was expecting to feel a lot more than I did. And so I think because I didn't feel that, it was like okay, like this is progress, you know? And I don't remember if it was that day or it was a couple days later, but I was on, you know, TikTok, and I had heard this video of this girl about healing and how she was talking to her therapist, and her therapist was saying like healing is like a spiral staircase. So like you climb up, but as you go up, you're still going to hit certain moments, you know, that are going to trigger you the same way, but you're going to be at different levels. So you're going to be able to handle it differently. And I was like, I know. I was like, I really like that. And so, yeah, I just think it was very enlightening and like it was really nice, I think, for me, because I was like, okay, you know, to me, it was a Sunday. It was and I, right before this, I was telling Shamina, I think it's funny because I started this podcast because I had so many emotions that I didn't know what to do with. And then, like, when Shamina was like proposing this to talk about, I was like, it's funny. And I think it's something that I should bring up of how insignificant it now feels to talk about my ex, you know, whereas in the beginning when we did this podcast, that's all I wanted to talk about. Like I wanted it to be about me and about what I was feeling and about my ex. And now I'm like, I really don't think there's a need to like talk about it. Like, yeah, the 1 year. So to clarify, it was the 1 year of us not communicating. So it's officially been a year that I've not spoke to him.
And since Karlie moved back into her own place.
Yes. And yeah. And to me, I think time is funny in that sense because, you know, I think sometimes a year goes by and we're like, I didn't do anything in this year. And now that I've gone through this, I'm like, that was just in 1 year. Like I lived with my parents for like 3 months. I then lived alone. I had a random travel nurse roommate. Then now I have a long-term roommate. I'm just like, what? This all happened in like 1 year. So, but yeah, I just feel like kind of now to talk about him and my situation seems insignificant and unnecessary. Like there'll still be moments that I'll like, but it's
Who are you?
all right. Who am I?
I think it's really interesting that it was so anticlimactic for you because you've been like talking about May 1st will be the 1 year. May 1st, we've had no contact. And you've been, you know, kind of like big on dates throughout like this like healing process and journey. So I'm pleasantly surprised to hear that it was just another day for you. I think for me, I hold on to dates for whatever reason in a very significant way. And I've done this all of my life. Like I know the date that I moved to Florida from Arizona. I know, you know, I just know these random dates because they mean something to me. And my therapist actually a couple sessions ago, she was like, Shamina, I wonder if that was your way of making sense of the world when you were younger and as a kid. And that was something that you could like control and hold on to. And I was like, oh, you might have something there because I have done this literally all of my life. And then as I get older and I go through, you know, traumatic things or just important things. I really like heart and I hold on to these dates and I'm like, this means so much, or it's so significant. I'm going to feel this way, or I have to do this thing because it's on this date. And that's what I've always done. A very rigid type of thinking. And I think my grandmother's anniversary passed in April. And that was a really good example of, I didn't do what I usually do for her anniversary. I did find a way to commemorate her in my own way, but it wasn't like I have to do this thing or it needs to be done a certain way. And that's what my therapist was like, well, I think you're outgrowing that. And you don't need those dates to like remember things or have it be so important. And I was like, you're right. You're good.
I think for this whole breakup, I did hold on to the dates because I think back and really, I don't remember a lot of dates. But for this breakup, I did. But for the 1 year of no communication, I will say for me, I think what hit me harder was just the anticipation of getting to the 1 year. Because I know, like, when it was like 2 weeks out, like a week out, I could feel like I was like, like I just feel kind of like off. But then, like, when the day came around, I was like, okay, and now I feel like more of what's hitting me is kind of like the fact that I'm turning 28. And just like I was talking to my therapist, and I I'm the type of person, I have to talk about my feelings. And I just feel so much better afterwards. I'm like, oof, I feel amazing now. But I was talking to her and I was like jumping all over the place. And I was like, I feel like it's just because like I feel like I'm turning 28, and I don't want to feel the pressure of meeting someone, but I feel like I still have that societal pressure on me of like, you're 28. And so like I'm telling her like I want to do things for me, like I want to start doing more social outings and things for me. But then there's that part of me that's like, I'm really doing this because if I go out, I'm gonna meet someone, and I don't want to have that. I don't want to that thought. And so like she was saying, why don't you commit yourself to 3 months of guaranteeing like I'm not even going to entertain anything that comes my way, because then she's like, that's giving you like the opportunity to actually enjoy it for you, and not like with that thought in the back of your head of like, if I meet or I'm going to meet someone here, and then if you don't, you're slightly disappointed.
Mm-hmm. There was something I wanted to say, and now I can't remember what it is. I lost it. I feel like I can identify with like the pressure, because even being in a long-term committed relationship, I'm not married. And so it's like, oh, I'm getting older, and that's what you're supposed to do now, is like get engaged and get married and do the things. And it's like, why? If we're happy and like things are good, then like why do I have to do this stuff? So I feel that on like the opposite end of the spectrum. But I can remember in college when I was single before I had met my ex, every time, and we've talked about this before on a podcast, but like I would go into class and I was like, I'm going to meet somebody in this class, or I'm going to talk to like some person, and it's going to turn into something. And then I end up meeting my ex at like this Halloween party that I went with a friend from high school, and I was like, who's that dude? And so it is really funny how like we take that pressure and that expectation off, and then things happen like really naturally and organically.
Well, before I had met my ex, I never had that thought, like, I mean, obviously I don't 100% remember, but I don't think I ever was like, I'm going to meet my man here. But then like after going through everything, it's like, it is a thought, and I'm sure it is because I'm getting older. But I sent you in our friend group chat, that TikTok that was like, studies say 50 or 2 times more relationships are made through friends and family. And I'm like, where my girls at? But it's fun. Like, I don't feel like I need to or want to meet someone. Well, it's like, it's like I know that I'm good, but then there are times where it's like I wish I had someone like to watch a movie with, or like, like have like, hang out with, but because then, it gets lonely. Oh, who is now? Who is now?
It does. And we crave like that attention and affection. We're like social creatures and we're almost genetically primed to bond to somebody for, like procreation purposes. So I think there's even like this biological component that we want to be in some type of relationship with somebody else. What the heck was I gonna say? Something about being 28. Your last relationship, it was really good too, and I don't remember.
Societal pressures? I don't know.
Societal pressures. I don't think so. I got nothing. I can't. It'll come to me like when we hop off, and I'll be like, "Oh wow, like that was stupid." But something with your therapist.
The spiral, staircase, healing.
No, I don't know what it was. I do like that spiral analogy, though. I think it is a really good way to kind of put it into perspective for people. But
isn't it?
I can't believe that we're almost 28.
You know what was really rude of my mom today? What she said?
What?
So my brother's girlfriend's 50th birthday is today, and she goes
50th?
What did I say? My brother's girlfriend's mom's birthday.
I heard my brother's girlfriend's birthday, the 50th. I didn't hear the mom.
Maybe I missed mom. My brother's girlfriend's mom's birthday. And you know what my mom said? My mom goes, well, you're only 23 years away from that. Oh, wait, only 22. I was like, how rude. I was like, that kind of hurt a little bit. Because I was like, damn, I'm closer to 50 than like 0.
No, thank you.
I was like, what? But I still feel so young, and I think everyone feels this way. And if you don't, please let me know, because even my supervisor, we had a team meeting one day, and she was like, I don't know how old she is, but she was like, I still feel young. She's like mentally. She was like, physically, I don't feel it. And I say that all the time. I always say I'm too young to feel this old, because literally my back like aches every day. But mentally I'm like, no, I'm still 17, bro. And then I have to remind myself, like, okay, I'm not 17. I have like a full job, and I have to be careful when I think that I'm only 17. Although also I would like to know, I'm all over the place, but I got a compliment the other day at the grocery store. It was a subtle compliment, but I went to go buy a lottery scratch off, and she asked to see my ID. You want to know what she means? She didn't even think I was 18. I be wearing that vitamin C, baby. But she was like, can I see your ID? And I was like, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. That was like 10 years ago. I will take it.
My 10-year reunion's actually coming up, so.
Yes, but here's my ID. Did I pass? Whereas like when I was like 18 or something, I'd be so offended. Like, you don't think I'm old enough? And now I'm like, that is okay, baby.
That's funny. I find it so interesting how you've gotten through like these are all the milestones now. Like you're done. All the milestones are done. See ya, bye, we're done. And just your change in perspective of like, when you were talking, like, I started this podcast, so it could be about me and I could talk about me. And now you're like, yeah, that's cool, but there's like other stuff to life, and it's not that important kind of thing. And I think it's interesting to like watch that journey. I was thinking about that piece too. I was telling my partner, I was like, when Karlie went through a breakup, it was like this earth-shattering thing. And she started a podcast, and like now we're all like, the world stopped because Karlie went through this breakup. And I was like, I went through a breakup and I just fucking kept going. And it was like nothing. But it's hindsight's 2020. It is what it is. Teach their own. But
how you react to it, man. I made it earth-shattering.
Yes, you did.
But for real, like, it's interesting because literally when you were like proposing this topic, like in my head, I'm like, I don't know what to say, because like you said, I've hit the milestones. And honestly, that is how I felt when Sunday came around, and why I think like I had like that freeing moment, because there's no more firsts, at least for dates. Like I was telling my therapist, like, yeah, there'll be firsts of like going places that I used to go to often. But like in terms of dates, the firsts are done. I went through them. You remember?
I did. Isn't it crazy how somebody is part of our lives for so long, and you have just gone a whole year without having any kind of contact, not knowing what they're doing, not being part of their life? I think that part of a breakup, or even like a friendship breakup, because the same thing still happens, it just blows my mind how like instantly, this person was like part of your life, and then now you are complete strangers. And that, I just have a really hard time grasping that concept.
Bro, that shit's probably the wildest thing for me to grasp as well. And honestly, like, I will say, so emotion wise, I don't really feel anything strong, but there's still a part of me that's really curious what his life is like, because I was in his life for 5 years. Prior to breaking up, I could tell you his whole day routine.
Oh, yeah.
And we talked several times a day, to going to, I have no idea what he's doing. No idea. And to me, that's so wild. And like, I was thinking about it too, because my niece recently turned 8 months. He doesn't even know my niece. Does not even know my niece. He knows that my sister-in-law got pregnant. And I think he did find out that it was a girl. I don't even think he knows her name. He doesn't, like, literally no idea. And like my nephew, he only knows him as a baby. He's like 2.5 now. Like, that is what's wild to me. Like, I'm the same way with you. That shit is wild, like wild, man. And like, I was just thinking about like his family too. And I'm like, that, I will say that's probably like the one thing that like I still am like really, I'm a really curious person in general. And like the fact that like I used to know you, and now I'm like, I don't know this. Like, if we were to see each other, I don't know you. I don't. And you don't know me, And I mean, unless like you're like tapping in, but yeah, that's probably the one thing. And I will say, like, there's still parts of me that, and I was talking to my therapist about this, and this is, I think, just because he was like my first relationship, that I think a lot of people may feel this way. But there's still parts of me that's like, he's just going to show up at my doorstep one day, or I'm going to see him and the connection's just going to come back, and we're just going to find each other. And it's just, like, we're going to be like, find each other again, whatever. And another thing that I was telling her is, because I had saw this other quote that said, like, sometimes when you miss a relationship, it's not really that you missed that person, but that you missed versions of who you were in that relationship. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that is more of what I resonate with right now, is like, there are pieces of me that, but it's also just younger me, so it's not even really the fact that it's me in that relationship, it's just younger me. So that's like, that, I was literally talking about that and I was all over the place in my therapy session. I was like, but it's all really, but I'm 100% with you of like, not knowing what the heck that person is up to now. Like, I couldn't tell you. I could have no idea. They could be in a whole nother country. They might not even be in Tampa anymore. I have no idea.
Yeah. It's just wild. And
yes. So wild.
mind blowing. But that was what I was trying to remember this whole time. I had thought of it earlier and I was like, and then it was gone and then it came back.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with that. Like, you might catch me trying to snoop to see because I'm just like, what are you doing? I don't want to know, but the curious part of me wants to know. But really I don't want to know and I don't need to know, so don't tell me. But I want to know.
Well, I think it's really natural to like have that type of curiosity, especially if it's, 5 years of your own life, like with somebody else. It's not like you can just put them in the back of your mind. You'll never think about them again, or like never wonder, what they're doing or how they're doing, kind of thing. I think it's a very human part of us that we are curious and want to know.
You know what's interesting is, so when I was living at my parents' house, so when it first happened, and I was talking to my mom about, because prior to my dad, my mom was previously engaged. And I remember asking her like the dude's name. And then I was like, well, what's his last name? And she was like, I don't know. And I'm like, how do you not remember the man's last name that you were almost going to marry? And she was like, it was like 50 years ago. And I'm like, well, not 50, it was like 40 or 30. But I was like, that, like, at that point in where I was at, I was like, I will never forget his name. And I mean, granted, given today with social media and stuff, like, I may not, but I thought it was interesting because today I was like, kind of being a little creepy. And I was like, what's his dad's wife's? I literally could not remember. And I was like, that's really interesting because I thought that I wouldn't forget like certain details like that. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. It did come to me eventually, but like, I was just like, it does fade. Like, I don't know. It's a whole circle, man. It's like a whole circle.
Well, it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind.
Mm-hmm.
That it was like somebody that you spent so much time with and talked to and knew about, and then as those connections like drift, so do the names. I can even remember, like, I'm really good remembering things like with my clients, and I have clients who, like, I can picture what they look like, but I cannot remember their name because I see so many. And then, if it's been like a year or two since I've seen them, like some stick out more than others, but I'm like, what was this person's name? Like, I just want to remember their name. I can see their face. I know what we talked about, but I don't know what their name is. And it is kind of crazy how the brain just like filters out that information that's no longer relevant.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, you don't need to know that anymore. And it's like, okay, whoa, wild, bro, wild. Like, the brain
Is that your catchphrase for today? Wild.
yeah, it's like shit that I can't grasp. It's just wild. Like, the idea that, again, you brought it up, the fact of like literally living a life with someone every single day, living with that person, sharing a bed with that person, to I don't know what he's doing. I don't know where he lives. I don't know his job. Wild. Leaves
What
me
do you
speechless.
guys think? Do you guys think it's wild? Or how else would you describe that interaction that occurs after a breakup of
Wild.
a friendship or a relationship? We want to know. I want to know.
Bro.
So that segues into my other topic that I wanted to discuss today. So I was telling Karlie about this. I heard it on a podcast. I think I told people on this podcast before about it, but I listen to Brene Brown. If you haven't heard Brene Brown, look her up because she's just a goddess in the social work, mental health field. She has a podcast called Unlocking Us. It's fantastic. But she had this guest on, and I can't remember the guest's name or what they were talking about, but she was talking, the guest was
Very
talking.
memorable.
Yes, super. See how my brain just prunes that information out of me. They were talking about how this woman went on vacation with her kids, and there was this donkey that was like at the house that they were renting, and the kids were like playing with the donkey for a couple of days, and then the last day, or the day before that they had to leave, the kids were like hysterically crying because they didn't want to leave this donkey. So this woman's talking about, kind of going through like the usual spiel that we tell kids of, we'll come back and visit, somebody will be here to take care of the donkey, like you'll see him again, all of the kind of things that we like tell people to like sugarcoat and make them feel better. But then she goes on to say that the only thing that would get them to stop crying is telling them that goodbyes are really hard and that you're going to have a lot of them in your life and it doesn't get easy. And then they stop crying. And I thought, oh my God, how profound is that? Why don't we tell kids that more often? Because it's the truth. But even just reflecting on my own life and the messages that I've been told or taught and how challenging adulthood has been, because we get fed this narrative that, things will be okay. The person will come back. The knight in shining armor will come to rescue you out of the castle. All of this stuff that we're fed. And I think particularly as women, more so than men, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, any men that listen, but to me, it feels like we get fed a completely different narrative of what life is supposed to be like. And even like tying that into relationships and breakups is, what's that cliche? Like there's plenty other fish in the sea, or, like you'll find somebody better. He didn't deserve you, all this other stuff. Nobody like tells you when something happens when you're young, like two friends fight, or, like you don't talk to somebody again, or somebody moves away. Like, yeah, this is really hard. You're going to miss that person, or like these big emotions are going to come up. So then when we get to be adults, we're like, why is this so hard? I don't know why I'm feeling this way. I don't understand these feelings. And I am on this is my soapbox. I am on this soapbox because it makes me angry that we're not told the truth about the challenges of life. We're told the sugar-coated version. And then when we get older and we experience some shit, we don't know how to deal with it because we were never told that it was going to be hard.
So I have a couple thoughts on what you have said. One, I think we sugarcoat it because that's all that kind of like, obviously as we experience, we learn, but like that's all that we knew when we were younger, if that makes sense. Like we weren't shown how to, because you're not going to be like, people die, like, like obviously like saying like, you're going to have to say goodbye a lot, but I think sometimes like people don't know how to like, you're not going to, go super intense with a toddler or a child, but I think it is important to kind of give them somewhat of a reality, but you also don't want to burst their bubble, like let them enjoy the youth of childhood and of life and the idea that it is all butterflies and, like at least for a little bit, like I don't want to be, but I understand where you're coming from too, because I also wish I would have been like, it's like a balance, and I think that we need to find that balance. And then my second thought on what you had said was in gears to the women and men. I don't think that it's, I don't know what word you had said, but I think it's the reality and not that men don't go through things, but the reality is more is put on women, more is expected of women. To be successful as a woman, you have to be a good wife, you have to be a good mother, you have to have a job, and to be a good mother, you cater, like, like there's those sayings out there right now that like a man will be like, a man will take his kid to the grocery store and people will praise him of like, you are such an amazing father. But that's the everyday for a woman who has children. And so there's this imbalance of like, the man has to do the bare minimum to a relationship. They do the bare minimum and they're praised. They communicate with their partner and women will be like, you got a good one. The literally that is like bare minimum, so these men, granted, they go through things, but I think there's just so much pressure on a woman and all of these things. She needs to be like 4 people in one person because she needs to be a mother, she needs to go to work, make money, be independent, be a good girlfriend. And then the guy changes his baby's diaper, and where do I find one of those? Sign me up, because that's just not heard of. And unfortunately, it's because we've allowed this for so many generations. And I'm not to change the subject, but I think that society in general and women are transitioning. They're starting to like change in the sense of like, I'm not accepting that. I'd rather be alone than accept a man who is knight in shining armor by communicating with me. And so I think that's why there's so many like single people nowadays. I mean, I don't know what the ratio is or what the comparison is to prior, but I do know that I recently saw something that prior to the pandemic, like right into the pandemic, there was studies suggesting that there was going to be another baby boom. And there was actually the complete opposite. And it was like the baby bust, because no one was having children. And I think they said the US's population only grew like 0.1%. And they said from that 0.1%, like 62 or 63% of that was immigration. So like no one was having kids, because like millennials and Gen Z are realizing like the responsibility that comes with it. And we're not just procreating to procreate. And I just, we're more of wanting to work on ourselves. I think a lot of people our age are getting into therapy, and just, so I kind of went on a rant, but
is that a reputable source, those statistics that came out of?
I think it was. I would have to let you know, but I'm going to say, yeah, it was.
I agree that I definitely think there is a double standard of the expectations that are placed on women, for sure. But I want to go back to like what you had said of, like let kids be kids sort of thing. I do think it's a balance, but the information that you provide is like age appropriate. It's not like things are horrible and life is going to suck and that's just what you have to deal with. And then kids are like, I don't want to grow up. Like, no, thank you. But like when they go through hard things, is like normalizing and validating that it's hard, not trying to like sugarcoat or make them feel better. Because I think there again is like this balance of like, I want you to feel better, but also there are other ways than, me like, I don't think it's lying, because it's like generational and that's what we've been taught, but just like this validation piece, I just had this therapy session with my therapist, and I was like, why do things have to be so hard? And she was talking to me about, her person, and if they were here, like what they would say, and how they would look at her and say, well, who told you it would ever be easy? And I was like, I love that. But that's what we are told, is that you do the right things, life is supposed to be easy. You do what you're supposed to do as like a woman, and you're going to be really successful, or you're going to have a good relationship, or people are going to view you a certain way. But that's not the case all the time. You can do everything right, and then something happens and life is just like, nope, here's this really nice curveball, like figure it out or deal with it. And I think it's really crippling to a lot of people, especially, those of us who have anxiety or even like rigid thinking. And I put myself in that category because I do those things. So when I do all of the right stuff, or I take all of the right steps and there are still obstacles ahead, I get really frustrated. But nobody's ever told me like, hey, you could do all the right things and there'll still be more to do, or like there will still be obstacles, or these societal pressures or expectations, like that's a barrier that you're going to have to learn how to deal with. And I don't think we were necessarily taught that, at least our generation. I think now the younger generations, it's very apparent of, the expectations that are placed on kids and what that's supposed to look like and what have you. But I just wanted somebody to tell me. That's it.
No, I agree. I think that we do need to acknowledge that life is hard, even if you're quote unquote doing it all right. Because I think it's hard in the sense of it's every day, it's an everyday thing. And like, yeah, you get breaks here and there, but it's like, unfortunately, we to get what we want, like, you know, there's we have bills and things like that, and it's like, so to have a good life you have to work hard, or you know, it's just like almost like the better the life the more problems kind of thing in a sense, but that's not always true either. So I think, but I will say, because I was a substitute teacher, and what's the generation right above millennial?
X.
Is it
I
Gen
don't
X?
know.
So I personally feel like there's like this range of children. I don't know how old they would be, but it's like they were never told no. And this is just my experience from substituting. And I think that that is a huge flaw for parents, to never tell their kids no, because then they're going to get into the real world. And the first no that they're going to be told, they're going to think, I don't get told no. And that is going to be a huge slap in the face, because there are going to be some things that their parents can't protect them from. Because I remember there were huge scenarios. So in that sense, I'm agreeing with you of absolutely, like, we need to start opening up the realities of the world to our children, but at an age appropriate manner. And 100% agree, because I remember there were some situations where I'd be like, you don't get to just color. You need to do your work first and then you can color. And they'd be like, I don't want to. I want to go on the computer. And I was like, that's not going to happen. No. And they would legit have full blown tantrums. Like, I had a student once run out of the door, out of the classroom. And so I had to call admin. And this is what's so mind blowing to me is I called admin. They came down, and do you want to know what they did to prevent him from having a meltdown? They let him go on the computer. What are we teaching these kids? So then what, when he goes to high school, or he gets he breaks the law? What, you know, like.
But I think that goes back to like yes, you know, being able to like have like healthy boundaries and consequences, those types of things. But there are a lot of people who they don't know how to handle like that type of behavior. And so it's easier to give the child what they want, or they don't know how to cope with their children's emotions, let alone theirs. So like, how can I possibly de-escalate you because now I'm upset and I don't handle my emotions well, kind of thing. So I think it's more of a, that's the word I was looking for, is a systemic, you know, we go through these things and we experience almost these systemic barriers, as well as you know, kind of the blanket narrative that we're told as kids. But more so, I think it goes back to like emotional and mental health.
Absolutely. I was literally going to say that. I was going to say, I feel like how you had mentioned that parents like now, like millennial and Gen Z parents, they are starting to be kind of more realistic age appropriateness. But I think it's going back to, because they're putting the work into themselves. So they're able to break those generational cycles and not just sugarcoat it. So exactly like you had said, when a parent doesn't know how to regulate their own emotions, how are they going to do that for their child? They're not. Their child's going to get upset and they're immediately going to be like, stop, why are you getting so mad? And they're just going to yell. Whereas if we get down at the child's level and talk to them like in a calm voice and say, why are you upset? What's upsetting you? But if you can't do that to yourself, when you get upset, if you can't be like, what's upsetting me right now, how are you going to do that to a child?
Yeah, exactly. Or give them something. Please stop. I will do anything if you can make this stop. You know, I'm not a parent and I can't even imagine, you know, having a kid who's throwing a meltdown or a temper tantrum. Like, I get pissed off when my dogs don't listen to me, and I will give them whatever, like, please, I bribe. My one dog, she stands in the yard and she just stares at me like she's challenging me, and I'm like, get your ass in the house, like, let's go. And she just stares at me. And so I bribe her. I'm like, you want a treat? I'll give you a treat if you come in the house. I'll do whatever you want if you if you come in the house and give me what I want. So I can imagine, you know, with human beings, that's magnified.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny because like I don't have children, but like with my nephew, at least when he gets upset, I'll be like, but why are you crying? And I'll be like, see, you just had to wait a couple minutes and then you would get it. And I'd be like, but obviously I'm also not the parent, so I'm not around to 24/7. But yeah, I agree. It's hard. It's hard to manage your emotions, and like I was talking to like a coworker today, and he was chaperoning for his child's field trip or something. And he was like, it is very overstimulating because he's like, I'm at this like museum and there's just a million children screaming. And I was thinking 100%, I would need to leave because I would be like, there's too much going on. Like, I need to get out of here now.
Yeah, we went to my partner's house for Easter, and he is the oldest of 7. So he's got 5 siblings that are under the age of 15, and they just range kind of vary. So it's very chaotic. And he's got 2 cousins who are under the age of 5. So when we all get together for like a family event, I mean, it's a lot of freaking kids, and I'm the youngest. So if that tells you the birth order, just how I cope with things. So I remember we walk in, and I have to like mentally prepare myself because I know it's a lot. They're very excited when we come. So we walk in, and I've got his one sister. She's like, here, do you play this game for me on my phone? I need you to create this avatar. I've got his other sister talking to me about like stuff with school. One of his brothers is like coming up, and he's like rubbing on my shoulder, and he's telling me about, he's got like dinosaurs on his shirt, and he's telling me about the dinosaurs that he's been trying to find in his backyard. And I got another one screaming at me, like, and I'm just like, okay, I'm only here for like an hour or 2. I can handle this. It'll be fine. And then eventually, like 30 to 45 minutes, I have to go outside, and they all just like congregate and follow. But I'm like, I need a break. Please, please let me get out of here. I need a break.
It's funny because I feel like that was my household growing up. I mean, obviously there wasn't 7 of us, but something was always happening. And especially when we would have family gatherings, because my dad's number 9 out of 10. Oh my God. There was just something. And so like now it's funny because I think back and I'm like, how did I like just do that like willingly and be like, I'm so excited? Because now I'm like, all right, I'm gonna need to chill on the couch. I'm gonna need you to not bother me unless I come to you. Like it's just so different, and it's a whole adjusting. Like I've adjusted to my life. I do what I want. I have no one to answer to, and so then it's like occasional things here and there. Like obviously I can handle it, but yeah, it's a lot. Shamina, that was her angry face.
My dogs are barking, and they
You want a treat? You want a treat?
Not when they are bad. Not when they are bad. I try not to reinforce bad behavior. Or if I do, my partner yells at me. He's like, don't do that. You're teaching them bad habits. I'm like, but I just need them to obey. So all that to say, that was my soapbox, because that has been my theme for the week of be realistic with our youth, but age appropriate, and validate the hard things that we go through in order to teach them how to cope with it when they are adults, because shit is hard. The world is still breaking. We are fighting all kinds of fights on all kinds of ends right now, and it's stressful.
Archaic fights that we should not be fighting.
Yes. It's stressful. So if you're out there feeling this way, or you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed out, or trying to fight for your right for whatever it is that's happening in your life, I'm trying to be serious. We see you, we hear you, keep going, practice self-care, listen to your body, listen to our podcast. I'm not good at winking, so I'm not going to wink. Carly's trying to wink.
Listen to your body. Okay. But yeah, I think we talked about a lot.
I'm feeling emotionally full. Are you?
Hell yeah.
Has your thirst been quenched?
I mean, some of it. No. Yes. I'm quenched.
What if that was like a thing? Like people, like the young folks say, they're like, I'm quenched. Hashtag quenched.
Let's turn it into a thing.
I'm gonna do hashtags for this episode when we release it. I'll put hashtag quench if I remember. Make sure I remember.
Oh God.
All right.
Anyway,
We will see you in 2 weeks. Don't forget that next week we are taking a mid-season hiatus break. We will be back on Tuesday, May 24th with some good stuff for all of you.
and this is a little tricky trick. If you listen to the whole podcast, I want you to comment happy birthday Karlie below.
Hey.
On our social medias or on YouTube, but let me know you heard us and give me a happy birthday.
But you also said it in like the beginning too.
Yeah, but I didn't tell them to comment happy birthday.
You're right. All right. Tell Karlie happy birthday to bring in her 28th year. See you guys in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.